just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. I have the great Ruan Sims here. How you going, sister?
I'm good. How are you?
Very, very good, thank you. Now, let's just get this out of the way. There's reports that you just come off a 24-hour shift.
Yeah, I did at the fire station, and but I'm fresh. I'm ready.
A 24-hour shift.
Yeah.
I thought I worked hard, but now I feel pathetic, to be honest. I get tired. I'm yawning after a 4-hour radio show.
Oh, that's hard. Tough work. 4 hours on air live. It's tough.
How did you become a firey? How does that all come about?
Yeah, well, I joined Fire and Rescue New South Wales in 2011. I applied, and I just finished playing rugby union, and I needed a break from that, and I was looking for a change in career, and I had a lot of friends who were fireys, and they said, look, you should just apply for the fireys, and I'd been putting it off for ages, and then I thought, bugger it, I'll just go and apply, see what happens, because it's so hard to get into. The intake is there's 9,000-10,000 people that apply every time, so it's tough to get into. So I just applied, and I thought I'll just see how it goes. At worst, if I don't make it, I'll know what it looks like and try again. And I was fortunate to continue making it through each stage, and and then I actually started at college in 2012, and I've been doing it ever since.
And what's the process like? Because I've only heard vague kind of. Yep. It's actually quite exhaustive, the process to get in. Yeah,
it's extensive. So you do some online testing first, and that's all around cognitive testing and emotional reasoning and OH&S sort of things, and then once you get if you make it through that stage, they cull, and then you come back in again, and they'll ask you to come and do what's called a PAT, which is a physical aptitude test. There used to be a beep test involved. I don't know if they still do it anymore. I haven't looked at the recent intakes, but we used to have a beep test and then all this sort of physical testing.
Test.
And I remember when I did my testing, you only had to get 8, 9, I think it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you only had to get 8, 9.
Yeah.
But I did it in I think it was either January or February, and it was at Alexandria Fire Station. That used to be the State College at Alexandria, just up the road, and the asphalt was like lava. It was so hot.
Oh, no.
It was stinking hot.
Yep.
And then we had to do obviously a bit of an obstacle course, which included a ladder, extended ladder lift and dummy drag and all that kind of stuff. And so it was pretty warm, but got through that and then started college, and I've loved it ever since.
No way. Did some people not make it that you would think shoo in, and then some people that you thought, I don't know if they will make it?
No, it depends what they're looking for at the time. They look for different things.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you have a trade or anything like that, it's really highly regarded because obviously it's very physical work, and you're looking at problem solving on the fly and just using what tools you have to fix whatever problems.
I'd assume as well, when you go to a place, if you've got a Sparky, he's probably going to be more switched on as to the dangers of what could be going on. Yeah,
well, that's something that we get taught throughout everything anyway, and we constantly do training while we're at work just to continue to stay up to date with things, especially with the advent of battery-powered vehicles and all that sort of stuff. That's we're constantly evolving with that. But yes, having a Sparky on hand is always great. Yeah, it's always
Sparky
very handy.
because I did 3 years of apprenticeship, so
there you go.
I'm technically not a Sparky, but I just say I'm a Sparky.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Sparkies, plumbers, carpenters, builders, everyone. It's a good mix of people, but it's a wonderful job. It's so fantastic. No 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
You get to work with a great bunch of people, and it's challenging, but at the same time, very fulfilling.
And so you would have been definitely on call when the fires hit Australia a few years ago.
2019?
Yeah.
Bushfires? Yes. Yep. So
what was that like?
I got sent down. So everyone put their hand up to go and help, and I was in a strike team that got sent down to Cooma, and sort of looking around that area, and it was so strange because there were those bushfires ripping through, but at the same time at Cooma, the water tower burst, and so there was this big landslide that happened just near the hydroelectric facility out there, and that was obviously one of our main concerns to protect. And so it was very strange. And then even just driving along and just going to check for spot fires and things like that, just heading out towards down towards, I think it's Jindy, down that way. And I remember it was just blackened earth as we were driving along, and I saw a brumby and a foal just in the middle of just doing that, just trying to find their way through. So we just stopped and we put some apples and stuff by the side of the road, whatever we had in the truck, and just sort of kept driving. So very confronting. Obviously more difficult for the people that lived in the area, but it was, like I said, any chance any of us have to help, we'll always put our hands up. So it was a very tough time for a lot of families down there. Yeah,
because it would have been, you're going down there to help, but you're also dealing with people in shock, going through traumatic events. Like you're almost, I'd assume it would be you're probably taught part of the job to handle that, but when you actually are confronted with that, I'm sure it is actually harder than I guess the theory would tell you, I guess. Yeah,
it is. And, one of the key things they sort of talk to us about as well is when you go into a traumatic situation, you didn't cause the issue, but you're there to try and help as much as you can to mitigate what happened or just to help the people. And, you just got to keep in the back of your mind, like you're going into someone's worst day of their life. Yeah. It's the worst day of their life. So you just try and do your best to help them as much as you possibly can.
It's yeah, it would just because like I think of obviously not in that traumatic event, but even if I'm having a bad day and I just deal with someone poorly, you got to think about that times a million, what these people are dealing with, and you're kind of there to help. At the same time, I'm sure there's times where they're taking their stress out on you, and you've got to find that balance between like taking yourself out of the situation and being like, don't take anything personal. Just kind of, you're doing here to do a job kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. You can't take it all. You can't take it personally. Yeah. You have to just understand that it's a very stressful situation. Yeah. And you're just, like I said, you're just there to try and help to mitigate it as much as possible or to try and make their day a little bit better. But there's also some really great moments that you get as well. So that's the flip side of it. You do have these really difficult events to deal with, but then on the other side of it, there's funny moments or there's things where you're helping people and they're so incredibly grateful. And I think it was especially during those moments of natural disaster, you do get to see true spirit shine through and just the community spirit that people have. And the whole community, even though they were struggling and under duress and stress and they were losing everything, they would bring scones or they'd bring little sandwiches or something to the station and they'd just always be so grateful. So, and that's the flip side of it. Yes, it's stressful for some people, but then the kindness that they show you and the gratitude that they have for your work and what you do, that far outweighs the negative.
And I got to know, is it like the movies? Like, is it when I watch fiery movies, I'm like, man, that looks hectic. Like it's so exciting. Is it like that whole?
Not really. I mean, it's. I don't want to burst your bubble. Yes.
Damn it.
Yeah, I don't want to burst your bubble. It's 1,000% like Backdraft. No, no. It's very, very different, and each situation is different. We have a very clear set of guidelines on how we approach certain fires, and there are always hairy moments in any job. There's always moments where you sort of think, oh, is this the right idea? But on the whole, everyone makes pretty good decisions, and we've got a pretty good sort of.
No heroes going, I'll do it. Because that's what I'd do. I'd rock up, I'll take care of everything.
Just kick the door down.
Yeah, absolutely. Shirt off.
You have zero fire protection.
Yeah, zero. Go in. I'm going to fail. So obviously this year, the NRLW, I'll be completely honest. I think, 10, 15 years ago, I'll say 12 years ago, I probably would have said, I would never watch women's sport. And that's just me being honest. And I think that women's MMA really changed that for me. And obviously NRLW, I just think it has improved so much. And, I'm not going to pretend like, it's at the pinnacle of the game and it's going to, but I just think in the short amount of time that we've seen, like I saw some plays on the weekend where I was like, it's only really been professional, not even like this is essentially the first year professional. And even there where, obviously we could get into it, but we'd be here all day. Even that is still on the rocks in regards to getting things sorted as a CBA. But the NRLW this year, even with a kind of stop-start pre-season, we had the Origin before the year rather than during it, has been outstanding. What has it been like yourself? I'd say you're a pioneer of women's rugby league. To see the girls improve so much and see such a quality product in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think the how quickly it's grown in such a short period of time is amazing, but it's also commensurate to the amount of attention and funding and professionalism that's been put into the team as well. So, obviously when 2018, when NRLW first kicked off, originally the NRLW was not slated to start until 2020.
Yeah, wow.
So it was actually accelerated 2 years because in 2016 I was at the Sharks. I signed the first contract in 2016 with Cronulla Sharks, and we put together just a little round robin nines competition. It was us, Dragons, Souths and Newcastle, I believe it was. And the amount of attention that got, the amount of interest that was shown in that, then kind of just forced the hand and things were accelerated off the back of that. And I think Todd Greenberg was the CEO at the time, and he was very open about saying that. He's like, yeah, it was accelerated because of the amount of interest that was shown. So even to go from 2018 to now, we were speaking off air about how you were working so hard for so long.
Yeah.
You're amateur, working, doing your podcast and do all this sort of stuff.
Yep.
When people look at what you do today, they think it's been an overnight success. It hasn't. It's been all of these years of difficult work and hard slog behind the scenes. It's exactly what happened with the NRLW. Like we worked so hard for so long. Women before my era doing it all for nothing, selling their cars, getting loans just to go away for World Cups and play football. And then in 2013, that was the first ever year that the Jillaroos didn't have to pay their own way to go to World Cup.
Yeah.
And interestingly, it's the first year the Jillaroos ever won a World Cup in 2013.
Yeah,
so
wow.
it was no longer the best players who could afford to go. It was the best players that they could pick.
Yeah.
And that was a massive milestone. That was a massive step forward for the women's game. And it was also Karen Murphy's final year as a player. So to send her out as a winning captain after losing for so many years to New Zealand was fantastic. So then you combine that with then 3 years later at the Sharks, we're saying, all right, well, let's just do this. We're going to put it all together ourselves. We'll push it through. We'll pay our players. We'll do all of this. And then only 2 years after that, all of a sudden we're seeing a 4-team NRLW competition kick off.
Yep.
So that growth in such a short period of time was epic.
Yeah.
And I think you'll agree, from 2018 to the final game that we saw on Sunday afternoon between the Raiders and Tigers, the accelerated skill set, speed, strength, game knowledge, kicking, all of that sort of stuff has just gone on the steepest trajectory because clubs are putting more into these teams and they want it to be successful, and clubs are bidding on teams, and they have to do it in a way where they present a case to the NRL saying, this is what our plan is, this is what short term looks like, this is what long term looks like. And teams are being selected, or clubs are being selected on, what they can do to help grow the game. And we're seeing that come out as individual players. And I think probably the thing that I'm most proud of is that now, from a pathways perspective, we're seeing girls not having to give the game away anymore when they turn 12. There are pathways where these girls can continue to play footy from the age of 12, where they can play up to when they're mixed, to all-girl competitions into opens. And it's now a much more clear pathway. And each of the clubs that have NRLW teams are making massive strides in that participation area. And one club in particular I know who's not in an NRLW yet, but I think they'll be in the very near future, Penrith. They've got their own NRLW competition and own pathways out there. So when they are ready to put their license in, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what impresses me the most, that these clubs are making sure that the pathways exist so that the top level can stay afloat.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably aware as well that there was a lot of discussion around that the quality of the competition would drop off this year, that it would be much less than previous years. And, I was very vocal at the time saying it's not the case. The players are there, the talent is there, and now the onus is back on the clubs to look for new players and go through, to be really creative with this stuff. And that's what creates diamonds, is pressure, and pressure creates inventiveness as well. So, to see all of these clubs go through that and now come out the end and we see the top tier product on the weekend is looking really good. Still room for growth, but fantastic. So it's been a very seemingly steep and overnight success.
Yep.
But it's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes by a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue. It's only going to get bigger and better. And I think that's probably the second most exciting thing for me. First being we're seeing girls footy all the way through from juniors. And now, we're going to just see the competition explode off the back of it.
Yeah, it's anecdotal, but, you know, I live in the Shire now, so I drive obviously into Alexandria, and it's purely anecdotal. Like maybe the timing is different, like I don't know. But all I know is I'm pretty sure on every Saturday I drive past and I see an AFL packed with men, or young boys, and then I see a rugby league field. It's all women. Yeah. It's all young girls playing, I think it's OzTag that they play at a younger age. And those matches go all day. And so maybe the boys are playing somewhere else, I'm not sure, but it just shows you. I don't see a bunch of girls playing the AFL game. I see them playing something that is, you know, almost a gateway to rugby league. So, yeah, as I said, like it's one of those things where I didn't really appreciate initially what a good product it could be. This is the first year when watching, like, you know, even the women's soccer and that. I just think the NRLW as a product, it's a battle we can win as a game. If we win that battle, like that's half the population. Yeah,
and again, this is something that I've been very vocal about. I believe that we can be the premier women's sport in Australia.
100% agree.
And because we have such capacity for growth, it's already a great product, but the capacity for growth is there. We could potentially in the future go to 17, potentially 18 teams in line with what the men's have. Then you have genuine double headers each club day, men's and women's double headers. You have standalone games that are proving very successful. And, you know, it's there. And that participation as well, that next level down is important. And the reason I say that is because I know that from 2016 to 2017, when we set up that first Sharks team, the participation in league tag, league touch and tackle, rugby league, increased 800%.
Wow.
In a year. And NRL as a whole, for rugby league, female participation has been the fastest growing area of rugby league. So it's an untapped market, and it's been double figure growth year on year since 2016, 2017. So there's definitely appetite for it. There's interest in it. And because we have all of those other pathways as well that lead into tackle, you don't just have to play tackle. You can play league touch, you can play league tag, you can play OzTag, touch football, and that's all under the umbrella as well. And that's probably the most exciting part and why it does have such a good capacity for growth. And there's so many, you know, again, you don't just have to be a player either. You can be a player, you can be an administrator, you can be a referee, governance. There's all of these incredible opportunities that our sport provides. But I think as a sport, I believe we can be the premier women's sport in Australia. It'll take some work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take some work.
Absolutely.
And there'll be a lot of people who say, no way, it's going to be something else. But that's great because, again, competition breeds innovation. And that's what we need to be successful.
Well, all I would say is go and look at the ratings. Go and look at the ratings and tell me what domestic sport has more viewers than NRLW.
Yeah.
So it's like we've already got the facts to back up the fact that people watch it. People watch it. And I think last year, if I recall correctly, or whatever year was, that there was one game that actually got close to a men's game.
Yes.
And I don't know which game it was, but the ratings were like they didn't beat it, but they definitely were like pretty close. And it was in a bad time slot, so I think it was in like, you know, earlier in the day, maybe on a Sunday or whatever. And I think compared to and this is not to, you know, throw shade at the netball, but I think they had like a grand final on in a prime time spot, and the NRLW blew them out of the water in regards to ratings. So it's like, the numbers are backing that up.
Yeah, an appetite. And people love rugby league. And the thing is as well, it's a different demographic as well. It's not just the same demographic as the men's. So it's not detracting from the men's game. It's just adding value, and we're just getting more eyeballs, fresh people involved. And that's also from a commercial perspective, that's what's happening too. There's people coming on board to sponsor that have never sponsored rugby league before. And then they're getting on board. So it's, like I said, it's a pretty untapped resource. And it's exciting to see it continue to grow and develop.
And I always say on my podcast, like, boys, even if we want to be selfish, the more women in the game means more eyes on the game, means more revenue. Yeah. So even if the player, like a young girl, goes in, plays till under 12s or under 16s or whatever, never plays another game in her life, she might watch it still because she's engaged with the game now. So it's a win for everyone, even if you're thinking purely selfish about the men's game and that's all you care about. So it's super exciting. But yeah, take us back to a young Ruan. What was it like? Obviously, growing up in Gerringong.
Yep.
What was it like growing up?
Well, yes. So eldest of five. Probably everyone really knows my brothers, Ashton, Tarek and Corbin. They've all had wonderful NRL careers. And I have a sister as well, Kinesia or CJ. She also played for Fiji for Rugby League, but she played for Australia in gridiron.
No way.
And the boys, they were all good at footy and all good at cricket.
A very talented family.
Yes,
Jesus.
yeah.
Far out.
So the backyard was always a bit of a battle zone for us. Tough getting a spud at the table at dinner time. But it was fantastic. So Gerringong was a wonderful place to grow up. The life cycle in Gerringong was footy in winter and surf club in summer and school in between.
Yeah.
And we had a nice big backyard and people would come around, we'd play cricket or we'd play footy or whatever else. But more often than not, it'd just be the five of us just going up against each other. And Ashton and I used to have to play against the three younger ones and we had to play on our knees. We weren't allowed, to run at them. Yeah. But then, things would get pretty heated. So as you can imagine, probably very competitive household.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But one way that our parents used to sort of help us just let out that little bit of competition and frustration healthily. Every Friday night, we'd have Friday night fight night. So we'd push all the couches back, push all the couches back. We'd have the fire going and we'd have the radio playing, like listening to ABC radio, with listening to the footy or listening to music or whatever. And we used to, just have
go at it.
Fight night. And so it was like the rules were, open-handed combat only. No punching, no biting, no kicking. And the first one to cry got a smack and then the whole game was over. So if you got smacked in the nose and your eyes start to water and your lip starts to quiver and the rest of the kids would be like, don't you do it, don't stop crying, because the game would be over. And then you'd just be sucking it back going, I'm okay. I got this. And then we'd just do that. So that was a really good little healthy way to get it all out. It was refereed by mum and dad, of course.
Wow.
And so
good
that was the Sims house on a Friday night. And then Saturday you'd rock up and play rugby league, and then Sunday you'd go and play rugby union.
So did you play with young boys initially?
Yes.
And then tried to find your way into the women's game?
No. So I played juniors. Ashton and I actually played on the same team one year.
Way.
Yeah, I was in the middle, of course, and Ashton was on the wing.
He
was on the wing.
God.
Yeah, he was young though. In his credit, he was young.
He's part of the wingers club now.
Yeah, he was young. So he played out on the wing and I played in the middle. And no one knew I was a girl because I had this, remember the old Madison headgear, like the brown and white tan Madison and the shoulder pads?
Yeah, the shoulder pads.
So I had the massive shoulder pads. I'd have the big headgear and giant mouth guard. And you couldn't tell I was a girl until I took my headgear off. So so I played that until I was 11, and then there were no other avenues from that age. So I moved into basketball and netball, and obviously quite a physical basketball player.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then very fortunate that I found my way back to footy through rugby union, actually. So when I was 15, my brothers played at Kiama, the Kiama Cows, and we played there, and I think we were just giving first grade a little bit of stick because they hadn't won a game for a while, and they sort of threw a quip out there saying, well, you girls couldn't do any better. And then next thing you know, the next week we're putting a team together to get into the women's competition down there. I had to get clearance to play, obviously, because I was only just turning 16. And so mum and I played footy for the first time with my mum, played rugby union with my mum. She gave me my first ever black eye as well. No way. And then it was us two, and then a couple of other, like one of her friends and her niece, and we just got a team together. And I remember Rigo, our coach, and he was hilarious. He would just treat us like footy players. He didn't care that we were girls. He's like, I don't care. I just want you to be good footy players. And so he'd teach us good skills, tackle, all of that sort of stuff, the ruck, the maul, all of that. And our very first year, it was a tens competition down there. And I was 16 and we won the competition in our first year.
No way.
And then as I was turning 17, it was my final year of high school, obviously. and I got picked up by the New South Wales Waratahs to go and play up in Sydney.
Wow.
And so when I finished my HSC, I moved to Sydney with no other plan other than I'm going to play footy and just made everything else work around it. So at 17 years old, moved out of home, moved to Sydney, lived with my auntie for a little bit and got my feet under me and just played footy. And so rugby union was actually my avenue back in, and it was pretty cool as well, because when I moved to Sydney, I was living in Ashfield, but I was playing for Eastern Suburbs Rugby Union. So I'd have to get 2 trains and a bus, and so I didn't have a car.
What were you doing for work?
Waitressing, sales, anything I could just make money so that I could pay what I needed to pay to rent and travel, and then footy off the back of it. So it was tough, but it was because I just wanted to do, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I had no other plan other than I wanted to play footy.
Yeah.
And Mum and Dad were I was surprised that they let me, but at the same time, Dad said to me too, he said, I've never been able to talk you out of doing something that you really want to do. So we just had to be okay with it.
Yeah, wow.
We just had to be okay with it.
Wow.
And so, moved to Sydney, played rugby union. And
so were you sitting there going, I want to be a professional rugby league player or rugby player or sports
footy
person?
I wanted to play footy professionally.
And were people like,
yes.
What are you talking about? Like, come on, let's be realistic.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was 1999, 2000.
We'll beep that out.
Yeah. I'll just, so 99, 2000. And that was, so I was playing for Eastern Suburbs. I played for the Waratahs as well, and I got picked up to play for the Jillaroos. Was selected in the squad. And, everything had come so quickly for me in such a quick succession, and I just assumed that I was just going to be successful at it. And I remember for 2002 World Cup for the Jillaroos, it was to go to Barcelona. And I was like, I'm going to be playing for sure. And I didn't get selected.
No way.
Yeah, so there was people always say blessing in disguise. I was devastated, but it drove me. All it did was kick me into another gear. I was like, okay, well, now I need to work for this. Like natural talent's not going to be enough anymore. I need to really kick in and work. And so I did. So that was probably a kick in the bum I probably needed. Yeah. And, everything that I did then in my life was focused on playing footy, making, teams, like making the Jillaroos, making New South Wales, all that sort of stuff. And, it was a really great opportunity for me. It was also very, like I said, very challenging at the same time.
Because, you're almost making it sound like, I just worked hard and got a butt. When I say I worked hard, it's very different to when you say you worked hard, because you're dealing with a whole other set of, norms or whatever that you're kind of fighting against.
Yeah.
Was it I guess, were you conscious, or did you say, you know what, because you obviously grew up tough with your brothers and you get what men can be like, but at the same time, when you're out of that environment and you've got to deal with it yourself, was it hard, or did you just go, you know what, I'm just going to prove everyone wrong?
Just blanked it. Yeah, which, can sound a little bit naive at the same time, but I knew it was happening, and I knew people were thinking things and saying things, but I just couldn't let it affect me.
Yeah.
And one thing I know about myself that I discovered over time is that I'm a little bit like those icebreaker ships. Once I set my course, just keep going, good or bad. That's generally what happens. So I just put the blinkers on, and I just went, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what other people think. It matters if I can look myself in the mirror, what I say about myself, what I think about myself, what my family think, and how they support me. And so that was it. It was just like, all right, this is my course. This is what I'm going to do. And, and then I was a lot of hard work, like I said, but I made the 2006 World Cup team for the Jillaroos, and I was a winger. So I'm also
You're a winger now.
Yeah,
you're part
I was.
Of the club.
So I started as a wing centre.
No way.
I was very quick, very, very quick. like quick. And then obviously as you get older, you move your way towards the middle of the pack. But I was a centre wing, and I made my debut for the Jillaroos against South Africa in Canada at the World Cup there. Scored 4 tries.
How good.
Yeah, I just loved it. So loved that tournament.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And that was just, it felt like reaping the rewards of all the work that I'd put in.
Yeah.
And then from then, just opportunities became more apparent. We got a lot more opportunities started to open up. So from there, 2008, we got wind that in 2009, the World Cup for sevens, that they were going to have Women's World Cup in sevens for the first time ever.
Yep.
And so Australia said, all right, well, we're going to put together a team and we're going to have a proper crack at this.
Yep.
And in 2008, they put together a squad, and we were going to Samoa to go over there and play a little tournament to qualify to get into the World Cup the following year. So Oceania, I think it was the cup. And Sean Mackay was our coach. Yep. And he was one of the first coaches that believed in me unequivocally. Like the way he spoke to all of us players and the way he just imbued this sense of purpose and belief was incredible for such a young man himself, because he was the captain of the men's sevens at the time. Yep. He gave up his own time to come and coach us and to take us forward. And so he took us to Samoa and we went over there to play in the Oceania Cup, and we wanted to qualify for World Cup in 2009. That was our main focus. And we'd had a great camp. Like, it was a really interesting squad too. It was half of us were footy players from Union and the other half were touch girls. Yeah, wow. So like Bo Dela Cruz was in there. You know, all of these amazing touch players had come across and were playing Union. And it was just this really interesting mix. So us girls who were Union players, we were sort of more the forwards, and then the sevens the touch girls were more the halves, the links, and the OBs. And I just remember us coming together, and it was such a great mixture of people. And there was like Alex Hargraves and Debbie Hodgkinson and Cheryl McAfee, and they were all like amazing Union girls. And then we came across and Selena Worsley was another one. And we just all gelled so incredibly. And we'd been in Samoa for a while. We'd been training really hard. It was stinking hot, and then there was this one night Sean said, all right, we're going to go out for dinner. You girls can have a night out, blah, blah. Anyway, so we go out. We had a good time. Obviously, because we're not professional. We don't really know. We had a good time, whatever. And then the next day, you could kind of tell he was off us a little bit.
Oh, really?
And we were like, what? He said we could have a good time. Anyway, we go back, and the next day he's like, right, what you girls did last night was so unprofessional. Like, we've got a tournament in 3 days. You're just going to have to run. I'm just going to run you. And he ran us and ran us and ran us. No. But it was a good thing, because then all of us got together and we were like, no way. We're going to do this. And the more he gave us, we were like, yep, sure, let's go. Yep, sure, let's go. Whatever you need. Yep. Okay, no worries. So there was no complaining. There was no moaning. There was no bitching. We just went, right, we're just going to rip in and just show him that, we might be able to, play hard.
Enjoy ourselves a little
We might be able to play always, but we work smart and we work well. And we did. And then he had this amazing level of respect for us afterwards. And then we went into the tournament and we played. We get to the final. We're playing New Zealand. We lost to New Zealand in the round games. And then we get to the final for the tournament. And for the first time ever, Australia beats New Zealand in a rugby in a rugby game. First time ever. Wow. And a lot of it was from all of that work that we did in the lead up.
And you got to include the night out too in that.
Yeah, exactly. But it was more so, not so much the night out, but it was the way that we came together afterwards.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it was the way that Sean said, I respect the fact that I threw everything at you girls and you just took it all and you said, all right, yep, more work. We'll do more, whatever you want us to do, we'll do it. And so that was that. And then that's how we got on that road to glory for 2009. And in 2009, obviously Sean he'd been selected for the Brumbies and he was over in South Africa, and he watched us win. From South Africa, and he sent us all messages, and it was amazing. And and then obviously, you know, he passed away not long after. And so I remember everything that we did then was for him going forward. So.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's just the fact that he was willing to, you know, he was a full-time player himself, take all that time with you guys, and then you guys to repay him like that.
Yeah.
It's what you live for, really. Like, what else is more important than that?
Oh, and like he was so incredible because as well, I remember when we got back from Samoa and we were back playing club and stuff like that because he was living in the eastern sort of suburbs area and I was in Bondi by then, and I had a really bad injury at a game. I was playing for Waverley at the time. And, you know, the cricket pitch at Waverley Oval?
Oh, I'm from Gold Coast, so
no, you don't? Oh, well, if anyone knows the cricket pitch at Waverley Oval, torrid. And I remember I got my foot caught in there and I got twisted in a tackle and, you know, basically just my ankle joint got pulled apart, tib-fib fracture. It was really bad.
No way.
Yeah, and one of the first people I rang was Sean.
Yeah, wow.
And I just said, look, this has happened, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right. No dramas, right? Okay, well, you go do this, blah. And said, this is what you need to do, da da da. And I remember he'd come and because I lived at this top, like at a unit at the top floor of my apartment building, and he'd come and he'd like help me down the stairs, you know, and then he'd take me to go get whatever I needed, and he'd drop me off. And he was just this incredible human. He was such a wonderful person.
Yeah, wow.
And he had such a profound impact on me and my self-belief and that thought process on ability and work and all of that sort of stuff. So
it's like when you probably would have still gone on to do what you did, become the first player to sign a contract, but you know, his belief certainly helped this, you know, and that's the impact that he's had. And now look at the impact that you've had. You know what I mean? It's that knock-on effect of doing something kind for someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I'll never forget what he did for us. It did for the women's game, but also for me personally. He was, like I said, he was the first coach that actually really spoke to me and saw my value and was able to put that into words. Yeah. You know, and that's really special as an athlete. As you know, like if you get a coach who can talk to you on that level and imbue that self-belief in you that they have in you and just, you know, amplify what good thoughts you have about yourself as a player and as a person, you know what great things can happen off the back of it. So that's something I still try and use now, especially when I speak to, you know, players that I'm coaching and especially ones that might be getting bad news. Yeah. Because it's really important. It's so important. And so he was pretty amazing. And so 2009 we won.
No way. What's that feeling like? You know, the buzzer goes, it's done.
It was crazy, absolutely crazy. And it was in Dubai when we won. We were in Dubai in 2009. We were staying at the Atlantis Hotel, like when it was first built too. Yeah, wow. Like it was just, and we'd never seen that level of opulence before. Yeah, like we'd never seen it. Yeah. You know, we're walking through the lobby and there's a massive fish tank with a baby whale shark swimming around in it. Like,
I recently went like only 6 months ago for the first time. Yeah. It's absolutely wild.
Crazy. Yeah. So we stayed at the Atlantis and it was just, it was mental. And Jason Stanton was the coach. Yep. And funnily enough, Jason Stanton was the coach in 2016 when we, created that amazing start in, NRLW or for the NRLW. So he was our coach in 2009 for the Sevens and very smart man, very, very smart man. And we had this incredible win and it was in front of, 80,000 people. No way. It was at the stadium in the middle of nowhere. It was massive. I just remember noise and people and heat and
it's so hot over there. Yeah. Jesus,
and it was in March as well when we were there. And it was crazy. Yeah. And then so we came back from that, came off the high, and I went to World Cup in 2010 for 15s in England, and we came third there in England, and that was John Manenti was the coach. He's the current, I think he's the men's coach now for Sevens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Australian Sevens. He was our Jillaroos coach back then, and he's one of our coaches, I should say, and so that was a pretty incredible sort of moment. But obviously my body was breaking down, and I needed a little bit of rest and recuperation, and so I decided to take some time off of footy, and that's when I decided that I was going to get into the Fireys and I was going to pursue that avenue. Yeah. And then just out of nowhere, Lisa Fiola contacted me and said, "Well, do you want to come and play some league out at for Penrith Brothers or Waratahs. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
She said, we just needed a hand, like just nothing urgent, like just
nothing
if you
crazy.
want to nothing crazy. Just come out and have a play.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. So that was 2011 that I got back into it.
She reeled you back in. She
Yeah,
got you.
she got me. It didn't take long. And then that just kickstarted a whole new journey.
Wow. Far out. It's like, because you've skipped so many years and just gone 6, 9, and then you're at 11.
Yeah.
I'm just so interested to know all the little details of the tough stuff in between there, because it's to do it non-professional. Like, for example, your injury.
Yep.
You're not professional.
No.
So you're not getting paid to rehab that.
No.
And I think a lot of people may listening go, oh, okay, you get an injury. Yeah, you rehab it. You're all good to go. Yeah, but when you're not professional, it's different. Whereas if I'm in a Broncos squad, it's literally my job every morning to walk in and I've got a whole staff rehabbing my ankle, getting me back on the field. Whereas yourself, you're just like going to see the local physio probably, or whoever you can. You've got to work, I'm assuming, while you're doing it.
Yeah. It is a lot more difficult but then it became if I want to keep playing footy, and I had a lot of medical advisors saying you probably shouldn't play footy anymore.
Wow.
But I thought, right, if I want to play footy, I need to find ways to be better. Like I need to find that extra couple of % that other people aren't doing, because I'm having to recover from this injury or whatever else. And it would be that obviously, because I was still part of footy club, so they could refer me to good doctors, but it was just a referral. So obviously your health insurance pays for some of it. Some of the insurance from the club pays for it, but then the rest is out of pocket. Yeah. And I've spent a lot of money on rehabbing injuries over the years. But again, that was my choice. It was a decision that I made because I wanted to keep playing footy. But it's tough. So you end up getting advice, looking for other advice. If you don't like the advice you get to start with, just hunt around.
That doesn't sound like you.
I know, just find the one that you like the sound of and you go, I'll go with your advice. And just forge my way forward. And it was a lot of rehab. It was a lot of physio work. It was because I was working full time as well. So I'd get up before work. So, and in summer, obviously I rode surf boats in summer and for Bondi Surf Club. And then I would have footy in winter. And so if it was summer, I'd be up at like 4 and we'd be on the water by 5, row, go to work. At lunchtime, I'd go and do my recovery or rehab, whatever, or training. And then I'd work, and then I'd go to footy training or whatever else that night. And then I'd go back to work. Oh my God. And then I'd go home, and I'd just that was my little Groundhog Day. And it was just a grind.
Yeah,
it was just a grind.
Yeah.
But again, because I had that idea of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it and where I wanted to go with it, that's what kept me driving. Obviously, my family and friends were incredible because I wouldn't have been able to maintain it if they weren't in my corner. Yeah. But it's a grind. It is a grind, and you've constantly got to find new ways to be better, and you constantly, because there's always younger players coming up behind you as well, so you've got to try and find that extra edge. And in particular, sort of the last few years of my career, I started working with Justin Lang, who's a very well-known exercise physiologist, before any players had already any of the female players had been working with him. And I discovered him through, I can't remember who I discovered, maybe someone at the gym, maybe Travis Young might have been the guy that got me onto him. And then I started working with him, and all of a sudden I was in the best physical shape that I'd ever been in. I was the oldest player. Just finding those little avenues of being better and little ways to improve and maintain that longevity was really important as it sort of got on.
So when 2011, around then is when you got into league?
Yeah, got back into it, yeah.
Did you, got back into it. Did you fall in love with it again? Like, I know you would have loved it all that time again, but I'm assuming union would have been, because you had so many good experiences in union that you've done it. But when you got it back into your league, you're like, man, I miss league.
Yeah,
I missed it.
I did. I had some wonderful times in union. I really, really did, because there was no league avenue for me then. And I had a great time. But obviously towards the end of my union career, the body was hurting. I was pretty mentally fatigued. And I was getting older, and there were younger players coming through behind me, and I'd had a couple of, I wouldn't say bad experiences, but experiences that kind of tainted my view of things, and I just thought, right, that's why I needed to just get away. And I was only going to take time off from union and then go back to it. Then this opportunity with league started, and the reason that I stayed with it was because, and it's also the reason why I'm always willing to put more back into league, is because it felt like to me when I got back into league that my love of footy had been reignited.
Yeah.
And I sort of felt towards the end of my career in union, I was just in a slog, and I was just up against it all the time, and I was constantly having to fight my way through, and nothing was ever easy sailing. And so that when I got into league, I felt free again, and I felt this love of the game. And that's why whenever anything came up about going to schools and doing clinics or talking to people or being involved in mental health campaigns with footy or anything like that where I could give back, it was always easy for me to put my hand up and say, yes, I'll do it, because league gave me back my passion and my love. Yeah. And so I continuously feel like I want to continue repaying that, because it gave me something that I thought I'd lost. Yeah. And that means so much to me, because that's part of my purpose in life, and that's part of it's such a massive part of my life. So that's why I've always got time for those kinds of things, because passion was reignited when I got back into it.
There is something special about league, I think. I don't know, because it's like the working class game. I mean, we still have our issues, don't get me wrong, we still have our issues, but I don't know, there's something a little bit different. Because I grew up playing soccer till I was like 17. Very different to league, like super different. Yeah. I think league does things pretty well, to be honest. As I said, we got plenty of stuff that we could be better at. But when it comes to like community, I don't know if anyone does it better in the country.
That's the thing. That's what I love about our game, is that community spirit and the community feel. And even at that participation level, you go in, and when I go to clubs in the middle of nowhere, there's people involved there who they got involved because their children played, but their children aged out 10 years before, and they're still there doing it because they love it. And that's I think that probably is quintessential of our game too.
So 2011, at what point did you, because like you signed the first ever NRLW contract or women's contract in rugby league in 2016?
Yep.
At what point from 2011 to 2016 did you go almost, I want to create something here, or was it always from 2011? Because it sounds like, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, it sounds like you got back in just for purely the love. Yeah. You just wanted to play rugby league, and it was a love. But then it feels like there's a period where you go, there's actually something that can happen here. It was, did that happen, or was it different?
I think it was probably from, 97, 98 was when I first went, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And this has to be a career. There has to be a career path here. Yeah. And I don't think it was my North Star. I don't think it was the main driving force, but it was always a thought in my head where I was like, there's something here. And I remember when I was playing rugby union and my brothers were coming through the league ranks and they were being picked up by managers. And I remember speaking to one of the boys' managers, and I said to him, there's something here. Yeah. Like there's a potential here for something. Like, would you be interested in representing me? And he said, there's nothing that I can do for you. Like there's nothing there.
There's no game.
There's nothing. And I was like, okay, well, I think there is. Yeah. And that was it. I was just like, okay, there is something here. There's something here. There's something here. And so like I said, it was never right at the front of my mind, but it was always there. It was always sort of that foundational level thing where I was like, this has a potential to be something incredible. Yeah. And then just as I worked, I got back in obviously because of the way I loved. So I didn't know whether it was going to be union or league that was going to be full-time, but I just knew that it was a female footballer as a full-time profession would be an option. Yeah. And then getting back into league and then seeing how quickly league embraced all of these new changes around the women's game, that's what made me think this is the space where something is going to happen. This is the space. And obviously we saw incredible things in union where the women got into the Olympics. Yeah. And Cheryl, she was Soon back then. Cheryl Soon was face of it. She was our captain for the Sevens, and so I was able to be part of that journey to help get that to Rio Olympics. Yep. And then that was sort of another thing that twigged for me. I was like, okay, well they've got the Olympics. We need at league needs to have something that is going to be equally as good a draw card. And that's obviously just working through the system and seeing how things were operating. That's when things started to sort of twig. And then, like I said, 2013 was the first year that the World Cup was fully funded by the NRL.
Yep.
And and that for me, I was like, okay, well, we see what we've done here with this. Imagine what we can do if we have clubs that do this. Imagine how good the game's going to be.
Yep.
And that just kind of snowballed things. And then 2015, 2016, obviously Jason Stanton was working at the Sharks, and he was doing a lot of sort of that community work there and working in that ability space. And obviously I knew he's an incredible coach, very, very smart man.
Yep.
And then we just sort of developed this. I think Tim Thorne was there as well. He was a massive part of it.
Yeah.
And so we just thought, right, let's just do it. And we were so fortunate because obviously 2016 was a golden time for the Sharks, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And also for yourself, you captained New South Wales to beat Queensland for the first time, 17 years. Yes,
I know. That was actually really exciting, I will admit. So I'll rewind that a little bit because it was a massive moment.
Yeah.
But also I remember being selected for the Jillaroos, and Steph Hancock was out injured. I think she had a broken hand. Stephen Folkes spoke to me. Folkesy, and he said, look, have you got a minute? And I thought, sure. I'm like, what have I done? Like straight away.
Why do all league players do that?
I know. And I was like, what did I do? What have I done? I was like, and I'm racking my brain going, what have I done? What have I done? I'm like, no, I think it's all right. Anyway, and then he sort of sat me down and he said, look, I'm going to ask you if you would like to be the captain of the Jillaroos. And I just sort of looked at him like a stunned mullet. And he said, you all right? I said, yeah. He's like, so... I said, I'm just thinking. And he's like, what do you mean you're thinking? I said, well, it's a big responsibility and I want to make sure that I'm up to it. Like I don't want to just say yes and not be up to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's why I asked you. I said, oh, okay. Anyway. And then so obviously I said yes, and which was pretty incredible. And then Ben Cross was around the area and he came in while we were in camp for Jillaroos. And he said, oh, have you got a minute? And again, yeah, what have I done? And then we went and sat down in the lobby and we were just sort of having a chat at the hotel, and he said, folks, he beat me to it. He said, but I'm going to ask you to be our captain for New South Wales for this year.
Wow.
I said, really? And he said, yep, absolutely. Like, I want you to be our captain. I said, oh, okay. And I was like, so I was a bit like bouncing around because I was like, holy, this is amazing. I never thought 3 years ago that this would be happening.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we go through and we beat Queensland for the first time in 18 years, I think it was.
Yeah, wow.
And that was an absolutely incredible moment. And we did it in Queensland.
No way.
We did it. We were at Gold Coast, Robina Stadium.
What was the score?
I can't remember. What was the score? 8-4? I was going to say 8. Was it 8-6 or 8-4? Yeah.
Wow. So it was a close game to the death.
Yes, and it was 80 minutes then too. So not 70 like it is now. So that last sort of 5-10 minutes of each half, there was massive fatigue.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think one thing that really stands out in my mind is I remember Ronna Peters played for Queensland at the time, and she was just tough and built low to the ground, and she ran hard and she was aggressive. And I remember they were attacking our line and I was standing outside the posts and our little number 9 was in the middle of the posts, and I saw Ronna spot her up and they were 12 metres out, not long at all, and she just screamed for the ball and I just knew Beck was going to get rolled. And I was like 2 players outside her and I saw it and I thought, no, I can't let this happen. I don't care if I'm going to give a penalty away. And I just shot up, blindsided Ronna and managed to get her on the ground. And I was just like breathing a massive sigh of relief going, phew, no penalty. So that was pretty amazing sort of period of time. But it was 2016, a lot happening. And
I was going to say, that's when you signed the first contract as well.
Yep.
Yeah. What's that feeling like, to put the pen to paper and be like, everyone that, said no. And they wouldn't have said it's not going to happen out of malice or anything.
No,
It
it's
would've
just-
they wouldn't have thought it.
But you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Right? You don't know what you don't know. And we didn't know how it was going to look, and we didn't know how it was going to pan out.
Yeah.
But obviously Lyle Gorman was a big believer in what we were doing, and he gave us that belief. Obviously, like I said, the club was in a really good place as well then. They were riding high in the men's game. They ended up winning the premiership that year. So there was a wonderful feel in the whole region.
Yeah.
And we just thought, right, we just need to capitalise on this.
Yeah.
And Jason Stanton, along with a lot of other people, put together this incredible opportunity. And we just thought, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. What can they say? They can only say, no, it's no good for us.
Yeah.
That's all they can say, because we'd got clearances, insurances were all covered. It was all done by the clubs individually. It just wasn't a sanctioned tournament.
Yeah.
So it was just something we thought, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And like I said to you earlier, like off the back of that, our participation rates went through the roof.
Oh, wow.
And that's what makes the game sustainable, is what that participation looks like underneath. So, I always get asked, what's more important, top level or participation? But you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
You must have both at the same time, and then they can meet, and then the middle gets filled out and fleshed out, and it looks more clear.
Yeah.
But you have to have both at the same time, and money has to be going into both, because there's no point having a massive participation but nowhere to go.
Yeah. Well, look at soccer in this country.
Well, yeah, I don't know much about soccer's.
Well, soccer's participation is huge.
Yeah, okay.
But the top league is obviously doesn't do that well.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
granted, they're fighting overseas leagues that are massive.
Yeah.
But it's an example of the fact they have this huge participation at a low level.
Yeah.
And then at the top tier, it's just
Nowhere to go
struggles.
sort of after that.
So
Yeah.
where's your point?
Okay. Yeah, and so that's what that's why it's really important that both are done at the same time and done well. So that was that was a massive undertaking, and it just felt. I was scared. I was very scared.
Yeah, wow.
Well, because I was putting myself out there and I did cop a lot of ridicule and a lot of negative things. And when you know what it's like, you put yourself out there, invariably people are going to try and cut you down a little bit.
Yeah.
But the positives far outweighed it. So I just had to learn to grow a pretty thick skin pretty quickly.
Because I know what it's like to a degree, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Like I'm a guy in a guy sport.
Yeah.
So it's like, people talk nonsense, but it's not the same deep kind of stuff that they in regards to the women's game.
Yeah. So just
what
growing
about
a thick
the contract
skin.
when you first signed the contract?
Yes, yeah, it was so exciting, and I was in at the club, and I signed it. Lyle was there, and it was a very surreal moment. It was really surreal, and I sort of kept having to pinch myself, thinking, "Is this really happening? Like, is this really happening?" Yeah, and like I said, we did receive a lot of criticism saying, "Why are you signing women when there's no competition? It doesn't make sense." But somebody has to take that first step.
For sure.
Somebody has to take the first step. And the fact that the Sharks were willing to do that was impressive. Really impressive. And they put their money where their mouth was. But also they went out and got sponsors. That was incredible to see that, like, earlier we spoke about there's sponsors now getting involved in rugby league that never had put money into rugby league before. But then there's also sponsors who've been big contributors to league over the years, willing to put in more, not asking for it as an add-on to their current contract. They're saying, we'll pay for the women's. Absolutely. We want to be front of jersey, or we want to be on the shorts, or we want the sleeve. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I go back to, people that may be a bit like, oh, but it doesn't make a profit yet. And look, I understand that argument. Like I do as a business owner, I get it. But with the market conditions, like it's a battle we got to win regardless. Like we have to, because it's going to happen. That's the thing. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of like when it's going to happen.
Exactly.
And so when they talk, for example, revenue, there are a lot of companies like Bloke, for example. There's only certain things that I want to be associated with. And there's a lot of companies out there that they may not be interested in the men's game, but their company wants to be associated with promoting, opportunities for women.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole avenue of revenue that we open up to ourselves as a game if we do it in a really smart, measured way, not crazy and stupid or whatever. Like, for example, I'm not saying it's stupid at all, but I do think, for example, I think the AFL did go too big too soon. I think they should have been like a little bit, whereas I think the NRLW is doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And a really steady, slow progress to where they're at.
Yeah. And I think, and especially at the start, obviously, as players, and it's so funny because I still consider myself a player.
I do too, and I'm like,
I know, and I'm retired. I'm an old duck. But, I'm constantly pushing. And, I think that's a sign of a healthy working relationship when two parties can have different ideas of how things get done, but things still get done.
Yeah.
And it still moves forward. It doesn't stay still. So I was always pushing for 6 from the start, always. And I'm like, no, we've got enough.
Yeah.
And then we went to 6 and I was like, we should be 8 next year. And then they went to 10 and everyone was like, whoa, 10's too much.
Yeah.
10's too much. And I was like, no, it's not. Let's go. Like, it's fine.
Someone needs to push it along.
But it's not just me. There are so many other people there. And the ARL Commission came up with the 10 as well. Like, they're the ones that said, we're doing this. Let's go.
Yeah.
And, and I think that just shows where their head's at when it comes to the women's game as well. And like, I agree with you. There's, like I said, there's other companies that might never have considered sponsoring rugby league in men's, but really want to be involved in a women's sport that is challenging norms and challenging stereotypes and pushing the boundaries and finding new and inventive ways of getting women at the front of the sport.
Yeah. Okay, so 2017, you captain your country in 2017 World Cup. What's that like?
That was pretty special.
Yeah.
It was pretty special. So there were 3 of us that were the captains, myself, Renee Kunst and Steph Hancock. And the competition was in Australia. All of the games were played at Shark Park.
No way.
All the tournament games, which I thought was a really great nod to the work that the Sharks had done for them to host that tournament. So all of the round games were played there. And then we had the final up in Brizzy, which is pretty special.
Suncorp.
Yep, which is very, very special.
Yep.
And, we've had a few special test matches up there. But that one was fantastic. And it was because the tournament was so big and it was so tough, and obviously we were trying to back up 2013's performance too. So we were trying to make sure that we had that win because we had NRLW wasn't happening then. It was just our state league competitions, and we were coming together for camps and things like that and testing, and we'd have our own fitness programs that get sent to us. We'd have to do it all on our own or with a couple of girls who lived in the area, and it's that's really hard.
Yeah,
it's really, really
sure.
hard to make sure you're at your top of your game.
Stay motivated
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I remember in the lead up to that, like the month before final selection, we had a testing day, and I'd just got out of hospital. I'd had influenza A for 3 days, and I had to go do testing, and I was just cooked. And I hit the benchmark amazingly. I don't know how I did it, but managed to hit it. And then we rolled into the tournament. So
what was the final like? Obviously against New Zealand.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was so good, and there was a pretty big crowd building by then too. So there was a lot of people getting their eyes on women's rugby league for the first time live, and it was very, very special. It was a tough game too.
Yeah.
Like, we won well.
Yeah.
But it was a tough game. It was a really tough game. And I think Caitlin Moran kicked a field goal as well, just to put the icing on the cake for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a very, very special tournament.
And then 2018, you signed with the Roosters for the NRLW, the inaugural season. Why the Roosters?
Well, Roosters, because obviously I lived in Sydney and I worked in Sydney, and the Roosters Foundation Club, and an iconic foundation club. And obviously because the Sharks didn't get a licence in their first year, which I know that the whole area was devastated that they didn't get a licence in their first year. And when I met with the Roosters, it was very clear that they had very lofty goals for the team, and what they were willing to do to put in. And and you can see it now. Like, look at them go. They're just a juggernaut now. And I remember our first year, we did not start well. We did not play well. And then we managed to get into the final, and the Broncos rolled us in the final. That was a tough one to take. But it was an incredible experience. Just, I didn't think, I wanted it to be, like, I wanted there to be an NRLW, and I knew it was going to happen at some stage. But because I had known what the timeline looked like previously, that I knew it wasn't supposed to kick off until 2020 or 2021, I didn't think that I was going to get to be a part of it. So the fact that I was able to was pretty cool.
Like, what's that? That's like over 20 years because of 97s when you kind of had it in your head.
Yeah.
So it's like, what, 20 or 21 years since that moment to see an actual league spring up.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then also just from 2018 to today, so in 5 years, to see how much it's grown and how much better the competition is now.
Man, that 5'8" for the
mind.
Broncos is like, God.
Oh, yeah.
Holy, her footwork is quality.
Yeah. She's from Sevens as well.
Really?
Yeah. So Gail Broughton, she's from the Sevens program from Kiwis. She's amazing.
She is a gun.
Vani Polite for the Gold Coast Titans, fullback.
Yeah.
Incredible. Emma Tonegado moved to 5'8" for the Sharks this year.
Yeah.
Another one that is just a star.
Yeah.
Grace Kemp is down at the Raiders.
The young one from the Knights with the headgear.
Oh, Jessie Southwell. Gun.
Yeah.
Gun. And she's only 18.
I know, young as.
She has got the biggest future in this game. And she's got the work ethic, she's got the attitude, and she's got the skill set, and that she's got that hunger to constantly improve. So she'll be.
She's almost feels like, and I'm not sure if she did or not, but she feels like nearly the first girl that kind of has played for a very long time in league to a degree. Like just the way she moves through, like her footwork is just, I don't know. Like I feel like. Unfortunately, the generation before just didn't have the support they did. But I think the girls that are going to come through in these next 5 to 6 years, they're going to have played since they were like 10. Yeah. Which is completely different ballgame.
And not having to put a footy down.
Yeah.
But Jessie actually came through Sevens as well.
Yeah,
so she went com games and stuff. So she, again, still had to sort of move away and do something else, but came back. But
shows you the strength of the game if we're getting Sevens. Like they're playing for their country and they're going, nah, NRLW.
Well, I tell you what, there's a young girl who's part of the Aussie Sevens team now who I had her come through the junior ranks at the Sharks.
Oh, no way.
Madison Ashby.
Okay.
When I'm just going to say when.
Yeah.
I'm going to think positively and say when. Yeah. When she comes back to league, she's going to tear the joint apart.
Yeah, wow.
She is so talented.
Okay.
So Maddie Ashby, I'd love to see her back in league.
Because she genuinely, from essentially a young girl all the way to now, has stuck in a league or union.
She had league and then she went to union because why wouldn't you? You've got the opportunity to go to the Olympics. I mean, it's a massive carrot. It's huge.
Yeah.
And then, now as league, we've got to be really smart about the opportunities that we create. And our opportunities are, say for Aussie Sevens, you might only have 12 girls that have full-time contracts.
Yeah.
For NRLW, in the very near future, hopefully, or at a minimum, we're going to have 10 teams that have full-time contracts for 24 players, plus 4 development players.
Yeah.
And the current entry level for, just entry level pay is $30,000.
Yeah.
For a 4-month sort of period of time.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. That's more than what I was on when I came through.
Yeah. And we've got incredible opportunities there, and it's only going to get bigger and better. So I think we're going to get a lot of cross-code athletes.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. Like, as I said, like as a man coming out of like high school, you can, if you're good at sport, you can know that you can do it full time. Whereas if NRLW are really, I know we're competing with AFL, but if we can go, you can guarantee to play a sport full time. Yeah. Like that's a big carrot.
Yeah. Plus you played sport full time, but we're going to ensure that you have safe time within your contract where you can go to school, you can work, you can do all of these other things or run your business or whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah.
That's the biggest carrot. Yeah. That's the biggest and most important thing.
Yeah.
You play sport full time, but also you've got dedicated time where you can pursue things that are other things in your life that have passion. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
That's what it's going to be like in 10 years.
Oh, it's 5 years. Oh, just even in 5 years, can you imagine what it's going to be like?
So true. So true.
It's pretty cool.
So the decision to hang them up.
Yep.
Because it would have stung so bad. Because it's been 25-year career essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did it come about?
It was a tough decision, but at the same time, I knew it was the right decision because every preseason was getting harder, and every training session I'd have to turn up 90 minutes before anyone else to do my prehab because you've got prehab before you do your warm up. So I'd be like Prehab.
If you were still playing now, you'd probably rock up 5 hours before.
Oh, I'd leave. No, I just wouldn't leave. I just set the swag up.
Yep.
Just set the swag up in the physio's room.
Absolutely.
Just live there. But yeah, so it got harder and harder. It became more and more work to do, and it was taking a toll on my body. And I just thought, now's the time, you know. And also, I had a lot of other things happening outside of playing that I had some really wonderful opportunities, and it just became apparent to me that I'd done what my role was as a player, and now there were opportunities for me to do other roles outside of a player to help continue to grow the game. So.
Speaking of other roles, Channel 9, you obviously up there. First of all, what's it like? And second of all, surely some dirt on the crew.
Oh, it's great. It's really great. It's challenging. It's fast paced. It's really interesting, and like it's a dream come true for a footy nerd, right? Yeah. If you're a footy nerd, isn't it just the best job to talk about footy?
Yeah,
just
crazy.
Watch footy, talk about footy, love footy.
Yeah,
break it down.
Well, you'd be talking about it anyway in a pub somewhere.
Exactly. I'm talking to myself about it. I'd even at home, I'd watch the TV. Even now, I'll watch and I'll talk about stuff, and no one's there, and the dog's like, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" But dirt on the crew. Everyone's a bit snackish. They love a snack.
Love a snack?
Love a snack.
Who's the grumpiest? Come on.
No one's really grumpy.
Really?
Especially when you feed them some sugar.
Okay.
Everyone's good. Everyone's
enough.
Pretty good. Yeah, no grumpy.
I got heaps of dirt on my crew.
Oh, do you?
I hate this guy.
Look at us both.
And I guess, going forward, let's say the next 12 months happens perfectly, completely perfectly, everything you could ever dream of. What do you reckon you're doing?
Oh, well, I would, if 12 months' time, I'd love to have it be that the women's competition started earlier in the year and we've had an origin period in the middle of NRLW, and then we're rolling towards finals now, but as a full year thing for the players. Yeah. So it's a full year contract, and that's one of their main sort of sources of income. Yep. And then obviously with that, I'm commentating and doing all of that sort of stuff on the side as well. So that's what I'd love to see the game at next year within 12 months.
Well, because then crazier things.
Well, then this is the thing. So then if you have that set up that way, then you can have New South Wales Rugby League and Queensland Rugby League, their domestic competitions can align with an NRLW team. Yeah. So that if you're not playing NRLW, you're playing down. Yeah, okay. And then
have feeder clubs and that.
Yeah, you've got your feeder clubs. So then can you imagine how good the level of competition is going to be then when you've got players who, because at the moment, because there's no other competition to go to, the girls who don't play every week aren't playing footy.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not, their top up is, as you see on game day, if you play less than 20 minutes, you'll do that disgusting sprint top up at the end.
Oh, yuck, at the end of the game, after the game.
Right? Gross.
Yeah.
So the flip side is if we have promotion relegation within the teams and clubs, then they're still playing footy. Yeah. And they've got a genuine opportunity to push for selection the following week. So, and they're not coming in cold. Yeah. They're playing footy. Yeah. So that's what I would love. Yeah. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that happen because then, obviously the girls are playing footy year round, and that level of competition, like how good it is now, it'll be significantly improved.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, ask all the guests this, favourite rapper of all time.
Rapper?
Yeah.
Favourite rapper of all time. Is Lauryn Hill a rapper? Or is she more of a
singer? I mean, she raps a little bit.
She raps a little bit.
Yeah. Lauryn Hill. I'll take that.
Lauryn Hill. Maybe Missy Elliott. I do like Missy Elliott.
Okay, Missy Elliott.
Yeah.
And favourite movie of all time?
Favourite movie of all time? Cool Runnings. I know. I don't know what it is. Like that used to be my pump up movie.
Really?
Like I would watch it, not straight before a game or anything, but like
for a whole hour and a half, you just
if I'm away for a tournament or something, that'd be my little feels movie, and it would just get me a little bit pumped up.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And,
no worries.
It's incredible what you've done.
Oh, thanks. That was good to be here. Love chatting about it.
Well, Dunskies.